This video is going to contain spoilers for the early trailers and gameplay demos of Sonic X Shadow Generations. If you don't want to know about any of that before going into the video, now's your chance to click off. It seems that Sega has caught up and is finally giving the Sonic fandom exactly what they asked for. Promiscuous title aside, Sonic X Shadow Generations has me quite intrigued, to say the least. I think the idea of re-releasing Generations while having Shadow in there as a new playable character and adding in a whole new bunch of levels is actually a really cool idea for re-releasing Generations, considering that we probably could have gotten a lot more out of that game. That's not to say I don't like Generations. I absolutely adore Sonic Generations. Might be my favorite 3D Sonic game. It's just got that really nice layer of polish that you'd expect out of an actual game. It doesn't feel like it falls into the camp of, well, at least they tried, like most other Sonic releases these days. And now it's coming back with a bit of a Shadow flair to it. I will say, I think the idea of doing a Shadow version of this game is extremely cool. But I will say, looking at what the trailers and the gameplay have presented, it really feels like Sonic Team just wanted to make another Shadow game. Maybe this is just to test the waters and we will get a whole new Shadow game in the future that actually realizes the character instead of whatever the hell they were doing in that first attempt. The only reason I say this is because the visual style of the game looks like it clashes just a little bit with the original Generations. I'll get into that in a minute, but I guess I'll talk about my thoughts on the Shadow portion of the Generations port. From the gameplay and trailers that I have seen, it's actually shaping up to be some of the better boost content we've been getting in a while. Like, I know it's a shocker for levels to be over 2 minutes long, but these are not Forces or Cyberspace levels of level design we're getting here. These seem like they're quite thorough and thought out, and they went back to the drawing board to see what worked. These levels seem to be quite dense, and though we've only really gotten a hint of Space Colony Arc, it seems like they'll be doing the levels justice. It seems like these levels are going to be very densely packed and very faithful to the original levels, which is always good to see. I think Generations did a really good job at adapting levels into a boost and classic formula, so I don't really have much worry in that regard for Shadow. I was a bit worried when early gameplay dropped and it seemed quite boring, kind of on the level of Forces where it was one straight road, you boost and you win. Well, it seems like hints of that are there. It does seem like there's a lot more diversity to the levels now. Obviously, this is something I can only really comment on once we get more in-depth footage and I get a little bit more hands-on experience with the game. But in regard to level design, from the little we have seen, I'm optimistic. In regards to how Shadow plays, he looks like he's going to take on a little bit more of the modern Sonic role, what with the kind of stiff, heavy momentum, the boost. But he has a couple more abilities which, you know, make him a little bit more like Shadow, with the Chaos Control and the Chaos Spear, which I'm surprised games with Shadow in it haven't tried to implement into the gameplay before this point. I think the last time we really got something like that was Sonic 06. Need I say more? But the gameplay really looks fun, dynamic, frenetic. I genuinely can't wait to get my hands on it and just try and trailblaze these levels. Did I say trailblaze? Can't wait to try and trailblaze the levels. On top of that, we also got looks at the Bio-Lizard fight, and this seems to be one of the better looking fights, and it seems like it's taking on a lot more notes from Sonic Frontiers Guardian battles, which I personally think is something that they should go forward with. I kind of like combat style to Sonic if they can get it right. The presentation as well, oh my god, this is immaculate actually. Look, I like Frontiers and how it looks, okay? I genuinely think it's one of the prettier looking Sonic games that we've received in the later years. But I would be lying in saying its visual style was perfect. I've always loved the weird and wonderful worlds of the Sonic games, and Frontiers definitely steered away from that. We really haven't gotten anything much like that in terms of 3D Sonic since Lost World. And need I say more? So really doing this style of Sonic justice in terms of visuals makes me really happy to see. I really hope that later Sonic games continue with this style, but we know consistency isn't really Sonic Team's jive now, is it? Not to mention how cinematic this game is. There are a couple of awesome moments of spectacle that seem like they kind of enhance the gameplay just a little bit. I was a little bit worried when I saw these things in the trailer because I thought, here we go again, Sonic Forces QuickTime events. But it seems like they don't take up that much time, and considering that the levels are actually a decent length now, it seems like these are going to be nice moments of brief reprieve, and do still have some gameplay attached to them. I think the most critique is going to come down to the Radical Highway transition. That place really is quite a straight road at the end of the day. But the music is kick-ass, the arrival of Black Doom is also really nice. Personally, the level looks really dense, really cinematic, and it looks like kind of the stuff that I would like out of a new Boost style of game. There's actual gameplay here, damn it. What is this? This isn't a Sonic. Oh, it's a Shadow, my bad. But in terms of graphics, this is where I love it and I'm also cautious, because on its own, I think this game is honestly gorgeous. To bounce off of that, the animations as well are genuinely some of the best we have seen in a Sonic game. They're finally making use of the awkward proportions on these characters and trying to get as much expression out of them as possible. Shadow's movement looks fluid and high energy, and as an animation nerd myself, it just ticks all the boxes. But it does seem like it clashes just a little bit with the original Generations. Now, I think Generations is still a pretty good looking game. It's clean, it's polished, it's optimized, but you can definitely tell what era it came from. It's been 13 years since Generations dropped. Obviously, it's not going to look as high quality as what we're getting nowadays. And from the looks of the trailer, they really haven't brought the original Generations up to snuff in terms of graphics, which kind of makes Shadow Generations stand out just a little bit more and feels like it's an entirely different game at this point. This is definitely just a me thing. I know that not many people care about this aspect of the games whatsoever. But for me, personally, visual cohesion is something that I like. I mean, even the UI is different in the Shadow Generation stuff. Shadow Generations, no doubt, does look better and well more equipped with its style. And Generations also looks really good and still kind of holds up. But these two are ever so slightly different. And I think what highlights this divide just a little bit more is the separation of Sonic Generations and Shadow Generations on the main title screen. Like, this is not a reworked interweaving campaign anymore. These are two separate campaigns. Shadow is doing his own thing off at the side. From what we can assume, Shadow Generations really has little involvement with the main story of Sonic Generations, or what little story there was to begin with. Again, these are all nitpicky things, but it just feels weird. I guess one last thing that I'm kind of cautious about is the actual remastering of the base Sonic Generations. I feel like a lot of people are getting tied up in the Shadow Generations part and how cool and awesome that's looking, but considering how the remaster of Colors went down, can you blame me for being just a bit worried? Sonic Generations is one of my favorite 3D Sonic games, and I would hate to see that side of the game get tarnished in this port over. Overall, I am looking forward to the game. The only thing that I'm a little bit ticked off about is not being able to get Shadow Generations kind of discounted if you already own Generations. That's just a me thing though. I'm salty and I'm stingy. This game looks like it's shaping up to be really good, but I don't want to jinx it because you know exactly what team we are talking about.